Warning: the following podcast contains adult language and childish comedy. Listener discretion is advised. And now, please adjust your headphone volume to an unreasonable level and enjoy the most dynamic and electrifyingly entertaining podcast ever to conquer cyberspace. This is
Amish Baby Machine.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the most powerful podcast ever created, the Amish Baby Machine Pop Culture Podcast, starring me, Dags. The Amish Baby Machine Pop Culture Podcast is a powerful American pop culture podcast. And I'm really excited today because we have a powerful podcaster also, and his name is Adrian from Adrian Has Issues, all the way from the mean streets of New York City. Welcome to the barn, Adrian.
Hey, how are you? Long time listener, first time caller.
Yeah, long time caller, first time.
I'm sorry, I had to get that out of the way.
Long time caller, first time listener. So what's going on?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on. A little bit before we got started, we had been talking about the fact that, we've both been podcasting for quite some time, and things are going well. And matter of fact, as of this day, it's been 6 years since I first started podcasting, and I know I had put out a big tweet about it, and I also had remembered that your show and you personally have been a very big part of, those early days and meeting other podcasters. So it's been a little surreal to realize that I've been doing it this long in some capacity. So first and foremost, not only thank you for having me on the show, but just thank you for, of course, your support. And also just for what you do, because, again, it's not an easy thing. And while 6 years doesn't seem like a long time, doing this, it feels like an eternity. And I honestly would not trade it for the world.
Powerful. I wanna cue the Golden Girls. Thank you for being a friend.
I can sing it if you want. Trust me, I love that song to death.
Who's your favorite on the show?
Oh, see, this is tough. Oh my God. Okay. I'm gonna have to say Blanche.
Now, are they technically super villains or superheroes, or what are they?
I would say they're anti-heroes. I would honestly say that they're a little bit of anti-heroes. Like, they get things done, but, they kind of follow their own code. But, God, that's actually a really good question.
Now, has there ever been a crossover from Mona from Who's the Boss?
No, but I was reminded today that there was a crossover between, I think it was Angela Lansbury Murder, She Wrote, and, Magnum P.I., which I don't remember this, and now I need to, flag that episode down somehow.
Did they make love?
But Mona from... If they did, I feel like that would have to be in legendary status. But Mona from Who's the Boss, I feel like she was that
Hold on.
fifth Beatle.
Hold on. The episode would be called BJ and the Bear. All right, go ahead.
Oh no.
It's a gift.
But no, if Mona from Who's the Boss was on her, I feel like she would be the fifth Beatle, or that one guy from Metallica who was kicked out for drinking too much.
Yeah. Now tell everyone. I want to know about. I want to know about your podcast, how it works.
Okay, so, as of 2015, it's been about 4 years now. The Adrian Has Issues podcast is a podcast where I sit down with other creators, whether it be from the world of comic books, music, filmmaking, and even just some friends of mine and other podcasters, where we basically just sit down and not only just talk about geek things like superheroes and things like that, but just anything that we love.
How did you first get into it? Because I know you had a show before.
Well, how I got into it, trying to make this a long story short, I had been working at a comic book store back in the mid 2000s, and there was my boss, we used to go to a video store. It was a Suncoast in the mall not too far from us. And over time, one of the clerks there, I met him and became friends. And at one point, he hands me a business card saying that he ran a podcast, and I was like, "Well, what's a podcast?" And basically, it's like an online radio show where me and my co-host, the name of the show is Big Kev's Geek Stuff. And he was like, "Well, we talk about comics, toys, collectibles." So I was like, "All right, I'll give him a listen." And just listening to the show, and it's like this reminded me so much of conversations that I would have with one of my friends, Atlas, who was my co-host on the original show. And so a couple of years go by of listening to this show and thinking, this sounds cool, but it's not something I could probably do until I really just researched it and was just like, this is doable. So one day I just asked him, do you want to start a podcast? And he's like, okay. And those first few episodes were rough around the edges. It wasn't exactly the best audio quality, but there was just something about having these conversations, talking to my friend about the books he read, the movies we watched, and all this other great stuff. And as someone who always wanted to do I always wanted to be like a radio DJ or get into some sort of like broadcasting, it was a nice way to do it. And since it's not like I went to like a broadcasting school, it just felt very organic, very real. And that's basically it. And from there, talking about the stuff that we loved. And I also wanted to talk about the people who made the comics, because in a lot of ways I read comics, I watched movies, I engaged in all this stuff, not really knowing about the process behind it. And I wanted to get a better understanding. So I figured, well, the best way to do that is to talk to the people who make it. And like I said, Adrian Has Issues has done exactly that since January of 2015. And the show has gone through, different iterations and different styles, and even like the guests have kind of changed over the years. But what hasn't changed is just how much I love talking to creators and getting the inspiration behind why they do what they do. Much like what, you do, because being a podcaster, you connect with an audience, you connect with your listeners, and just building those connections. And I've met so many great people over the years from this, and in a way that I wouldn't have done otherwise. So it really did change my life, mostly for the better, except for the sleep part. I lose a lot of sleep now.
Now, why do you lose a lot of sleep?
Mainly just editing, show prep, and something, I don't know if you can attest to this, but podcasting, it looks easy, and a lot of times it even sounds easy, but a lot of work goes into a show prep. Whether you do a solo show or one with a co-host or you're interviewing people, there's a certain amount of work that goes into setting up shows, depending on what your equipment is, editing your shows if you're someone who heavily edits. It's a lot, and especially if you're a show that does it on a constant basis weekly, that's a lot of time, and it's a heavy commitment. It's very rewarding, but it's still work. So, and a lot of my editing is usually done like overnight.
Now, what do you call your fans? The listeners.
Oh, see, that is a good question, because you know what? I don't have you're cool because you have what is it, the Flock of Amish?
Yes,
so
powerful.
You have this really awesome name. I don't think I have a name for my co-host yet.
I'll have to come up with one.
I don't have a name for my listeners.
No, because I consider the Flock of Amish, we're like a cult, but we're a fun cult.
It's like Blue Oyster Cult kind of thing.
Powerful. Godzilla.
Nice. Gosh, now I'm gonna have to think about this and get back to you, because that's something I never thought of. What are my listeners called?
Yes.
Wonderful is the first thing that comes to mind, but I need a.
Well, it has to be an alliteration. Peter Parker, Matt Murdock, Adrian's Aliens, something cool. Aliens are big right now.
Yeah, they are pretty big, but that's what I'm kind of concerned about. I feel like I'd be trying to capitalize on the viral thing going on, but once that well runs dry, I'm gonna have to come up with something else.
Area 51. No, my idea was everything was already in Area 50. They moved it all.
And they probably will move it again.
Now, do you believe in aliens? Because I love aliens. I love UFOs. UFOs, that's how I pronounce it.
I'm going to say this on the record. I truly believe that there is some other life out there. Does it exist the way that it's depicted in movies, maybe, maybe not. But I'd find it hard to believe that we haven't made contact with something out there. I'm not like the guy from like Blink 182 who's like created this whole think tank to try to like discover them. But honestly, I think it'd be great if we like came across like, hey, this guy here, or this one, whatever. Turns out they've been alien. They've been here for years and they live among us. I don't know. I think it'd be kind of rad.
What's your favorite alien movie?
Oh God. I mean, it would have to be, I think, Alien or Aliens.
Powerful. Powerful. Alien or
Scared the
Aliens?
ever living crap out of me, but it's great.
Yeah, I loved Aliens. I always use that quote, where the nuke it from orbit's the only way to be sure. Sometimes,
You know how many times I've said that in my everyday life?
yeah, I know
And I don't know
exactly.
if that's sad or funny.
Or Chet from Weird Science. Game over, man. Oh, that dude is awesome. It's kind of sad he
Rest in
passed.
peace, Bill Paxton.
I
He
know.
really is he really was one of those great character actors. But yeah, the Alien series is so much fun. And even with like the ridiculous movies like Alien versus Predator, like it's still so much fun.
Oh yeah, Predator is weird too because you don't even think of that as an alien movie. I mean, it's cool because it's one of my favorite go-to movies, and I always talk about how it starts out as like a cool '80s action flick, and then it segues into sci-fi horror. I mean, it's amazing.
Right. And I was thinking about that not too long ago, because it's one of like my dad's favorite movies. We were talking about it at least through text, and we were talking about that very same thing because that really couldn't exist with like social media where like things would get spoiled early. But could you imagine going into the movies to see Predator for the first time thinking it's just gonna be Schwarzenegger with the machine gun just mowing down like these like random like I don't know, like armed militia or something like that, only to find out that they're actually like being hunted down by like this alien that can go invisible. Like that would blow my mind if I saw that in theaters originally.
It's great. Now, speaking about, I wanted to get back to comic books, the Comic Con. Now, you go to the conventions, don't you?
Yeah, I have not been to San Diego yet. That's to me, it's like that is the pardon the pun. That's the end game because that's like the Comic Con, at least to me. And I've been to a lot of the ones in the area, a lot of small ones, the one in New York. But going out to San Diego, to me, that's like once I'm there, and like even like let's say doing a panel or a live podcast taping at that convention, I know I've made it.
Absolutely. Now, what is your take on the conventions in general? Because I had a little problem. I went to one, and it almost seemed like it was too much about making money and not as much about comic books. Because the one I went to,
Right.
they were selling like vinyl, they were selling knickknacks, like nothing that had to do with comic books. And then there was a ton of artists that all they were doing was their versions of superheroes. And then you have the row of the so-called, the famous people, and they're charging exorbitant fees for their pictures. And I understand it's a business, I get that, but I wish it could be more about the fandom and less about making money.
Right. And that's a very like multi-layered question, and I've seen a lot of talk online about what makes a good convention. Like I'll put it to you like this. When I first started going to conventions, it was very much like I'd go see, okay, who were the people, like obviously someone like a Stanley or a famous comic creator, or even like any celebrity I'd want to meet. But then as I kept going through, with each year, running across areas like, Artist Alley or the small press tables, like these booths where you're meeting these great creators. And it's cool because with them, you can have a little bit more one-on-one because you're not like having to wait on a line forever. But I think to me, conventions are difficult because everybody kind of has different reasons as to why they go. Some people, like you said, go for comics. Some people want to go to maybe meet celebrities. And as far as like what they charge, it can be a bit much. But if you're someone who's like really into, let's say, I think it was like Mark Hamill was at one of the New York Comic Cons, and I remember looking at um, what the price for autograph was, and at the time it was too expensive for me. Then like the following year, where I actually had a little bit more of a budget, and then he wasn't there, it's like, dang, actually in retrospect, it didn't seem like that was a big deal. So it's like, shoot, I could have actually just pointed up the cash just to meet, Luke Skywalker. But it is hard.
There must have been a downtime
I'm
for
sorry, was
Mark Hamill. There must have been a downtime for Mark Hamill between the movies and the reinsurgence of the popularity. Like, I'm trying to figure out what year,
right.
like after the trilogy, that you know, he would have showed up at World of Wheels, you know, car show, World of Wheels starring Mark Hamill. Get your autograph.
And that line still would have been pretty long, you know. And you're right, because I think this is mainly around the time when he was doing, I think, of mostly voiceover work. There hadn't been. Oh God, had they really started talking about the new trilogy yet? No, the new trilogy hadn't happened just yet. So, but again, I guess it really depends on what you're there for. Because like I said, I know having met, let's see, what is his name, Larry Kinney, the voice actor who does the voice of Mino in Thundercats. That was at a much smaller convention out here in New York, and it wasn't necessarily even about just necessarily the money or anything like that, but to meet someone who I greatly admired and was the voice of one of my favorite characters and one of my favorite cartoons, it was worth the price. So, like, in the same thing with meeting comic book creators, but it's also fun because you get to meet people that you do admire from, like, let's say TV shows, but then hopefully you can then meet some people that you maybe aren't aware of from the world of comics. And it's tough because it's like, okay, who do you go there for? And I think it's really the responsibility of the convention runners that they make sure that everybody's well represented. Whether you're there, like I said, for comics, for to meet wrestlers, or even if you're there just to kind of like trade and like, you know, like they always have like the dealers, they have like the short boxes and like they'll have like the, you know, the rare comics. Even if you're there for that, then make sure that everybody kind of has a place and that everybody's well represented. Because I know some people argue like, well, you can't call it a Comic Con if it's just celebrities, which I know Comic Con's sort of like a catch-all. So, like I said, it's a little tricky, but I think as long as whoever's running it runs it well and make sure that whoever's paying to be there, whether it be the guests or exhibitors, everybody's well represented. I don't think it's too big a deal.
Now, have you gone up to a lot of vendor tables, and are most of them friendly towards you, or because it seems like a lot of times I went to a couple, and there was always like some dudes sitting down and they're making butter sandwiches, and I'm like, and you're kind of up at the table, and they're kind of just like, you're kind of like an inconvenience, like go away, and I'm like, dude, you know, I might buy some shit, but you're back there just blowing me off, and that's happened a couple
Right.
different times for me.
And I'd be lying if I said that didn't happen to me as well. Whether I was just there as a convention goer or even trying to like work the floor, even like as a podcaster. And it does bum me out, but I also understand like most conventions are what 2-3 days, and it's a good chunk of the day. So I'm thinking on this end, yeah, it's really hard when you have somebody who's, you know, maybe unattentive or, you know, they kind of look worn out, but then realizing like they've been there like all day. And it's hard because usually when I do a podcast, I'm only doing it for maybe an hour, hour and a half most. But then if I'm really tired, once the show's over and everything's done, like I can go like in the bedroom and like relax since, you know, I do this out of my house. But if you're at a convention, like there's not really like a rest area, so to speak. So you're pretty much there the whole time. So if you're having a long day or even like a bad day or even if you're having a great day, it's a lot to be at a booth. So I try to like cut people some slack as long as they're not like super like super like nasty about it, because you know I talked to some people and they've been like like had like a really bad attitude. Like if someone just flat out said to me, it's like, look, you know, I do apologize, it's been a long day, which has happened, and you know, I was like, you know, is there, you know, so you know, at least that way they let you know, it's like, look, I'm not necessarily going out of my way to be like a jerk or anything. It's just like, look, it's been a long day, so I appreciate your consideration. That goes a long way to me to keep things from being super awkward.
Yeah, you know, and there's also the cosplay. No, that's gotten huge over the years. Because
Oh
I,
yeah.
you know, I thought about getting into doing Caillou cosplay. I think I could pull it off.
Wait, is Johnny Rage going to be Rosie?
Powerful, powerful. Now tell me about
Oh my
cosplay.
god, no. You got to do it at least once. You got to do it at least once. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I know. I
I think people would just love it.
I do want to do YouTube also. I'm a little scared though. I'm just gonna do it. You need to stop
Yeah,
talking
I
about stuff.
honestly
You
just
just
say
got to
go
do
for
it.
it. Absolutely. That's kind of how I started podcasting.
Have you thought about doing a YouTube channel?
I thought about doing video, but I don't think I'm terribly like photogenic or video ready. I don't know. I'm I'm still at the can I take a picture where I don't look like Swamp Thing stage in my life. But no, and I have thought about doing YouTube, and I know that's also a really big market that I don't want to ignore at all. But I have to find a way to do it where it makes sense. If that makes
Well, they should have.
that
You know how they have the
sounds
Face app?
accurate. Right.
They should have a Face app for YouTube. You know,
Oh God, so I
smooths
can
out
look
all the
older than I already
lines, and
do.
yeah, smooths out all the lines and makes you look handsome.
Oh man. Well, in that case, if we're doing that, then I'll just start doing like Idris Elba deep fakes. Like
Yeah, the deep
he's like,
fake
you sound a
videos.
little weird.
Now, what are your what's your take on cosplay? You enjoy that?
I I dig it. Like anybody, whether it's a simple like, okay, I'm just wearing like a Spider-Man onesie, or you're doing like professional cosplay where people that tour, I give anybody credit because I know like when I go to cons, I usually have like a survival kit. Like I have like, the backpack, there's like lunches, there's microphone equipment, there's stuff for comics and posters. So you're walking around like a video game character with all these items in your inventory, and it's exhausting to walk around all day. So imagine wearing a costume, regardless of what it is, all day, and having to stop to take pictures, and then especially how elaborate it is, you're trying to like navigate like crowded rooms and stuff like that. So I give people all the credit for cosplaying, no matter how it is that they do it, because I just know me. I couldn't do it because I think after like the first hour, I'd want to rip everything off. So you got to be committed to that kind of thing.
What superhero do you look like closest to?
Let's see. Oh, this is tough. I was gonna say the Blob, but Eileen would kill
Now,
me
what
for
is the
that
deal
joke.
with the Blob? Can we have more Blob? I want the Blob now.
Matter of
Which
fact,
X-Men movie was that where he was in the boxing ring sipping on the drink?
oh, was it X Men Origins or was it First Class?
I can
I
never
can't remember.
remember.
But I know he got like a really big push in the what is it, the comic? Was it Extremis? Recently, like he actually kind of had like this nice big push where he was less of like just this angry big dude, and he actually kind of had like this nice multi-layered story. It was really sweet.
I always like the characters no one likes. I always like the comic books no one likes, like Marvel 2-in-1 thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not worth anything. But I always like the characters no one likes. Like I like the Blob. I like the Beast before he mutated into the purple cat. You know what I mean? And they got to give up.
Oh yeah, before like these.
They got to give up on the Beast. I mean, you can't pull off that the Cookie Monster fur. It doesn't translate well.
Yeah, I think the Beast, he became like that really cool character in as much of they really started to play with the moral implications of like the stuff he does, because obviously him getting the fur was an accident. But then in later comics, where was that Beast that were for all intents and purposes he tried to stop trying to find a way to keep mutants thriving, because there was this whole storyline where like Scarlet Witch had like wished away mutants, and they're an endangered species. So at one point, he was trying to find a way to counteract that, and I think one of the ideas was bringing like the original five X-Men from the past. And then he was also a part of like the Marvel Illuminati. And if you haven't read Avengers or New Avengers by Jonathan Hickman, always a book I recommend because it's great. Because Beast, along with some other Marvel characters like Black Panther, Doctor Strange, and Namor, Iron Man, like they're a part of like this group. Essentially, they're trying to figure out how to save the world, but yet in order to save the world, like they kind of have to start like making these really just tough compromises that kind of blur the lines. Like, okay, are they heroes still? In Beast, always kind of being the kind of morally upright character, watching him sort of make all those decisions, it's really cool, and it made me kind of appreciate Beast in a way I didn't before. Because before it was just kind of like, okay, he's Blue Donkey Kong.
Yeah, exactly. And I like Cyclops. I mean, I like Havoc. I like a lot of characters that aren't as popular.
Oh, Havoc's great.
Isn't he epic?
Havoc. Yeah, Havoc. I'm sorry, Havoc's better than Cyclops. It just is. Anyone who hears this and feels a certain kind of way, fight me. He's just better.
Now let me hear your top characters. What are your go-to books? Like if you could only have a couple.
Okay. Only a couple? Well, anything X-Men based, that's tough because like the X-Men are always being rebooted. So I'm trying to see my number. Like, okay, of any series or years, okay, so the New Mutants from the '80s, definitely up there. Um, the '90s X Factor, that team that Havoc run, that was my second favorite. Generation X, that one team with like Banshee and like Jubilee. Again, like I think I'm like you. I think a lot of obscure comic book characters, especially obscure X-Men. Wait, am I up to 3, right? Or am I at 4?
No, that's fine. I mean, I just like to talk about like characters that a lot of people don't know about, or maybe know about, but
Right.
it seems like in the movies, it just kind of, all there is Iron Man and Captain America and Thor. And I kind of like some of the ones that, like I said, Beast and Blob. And, I was just watching on the last podcast episode, I was talking about Spider-Man Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
We could get into that. You saw that, right?
Yes, I did see that.
Yep. The Spider-Man when he turns into Sandman, turns in his origin when he's sand and he forms. What's his name? Hayden Church guy.
Oh yeah, Thomas Hayden
Yes.
Church. That was my guy. Like, it was such a great character. I know that everybody hates that movie, but
No, I
he was
see.
great.
I loved it, and the scene where he's forming and he's falling apart, and then he reaches for the locket and it falls through his hands, and the music. See, my problem is
down.
now with
one of the best scenes ever.
my problem is now with movies, they cram so many things on the screen. They have a million different things buzzing around, and you can't process all that. But like that Sandman scene was so sweet because it was just one dude. You just concentrating on that, and then the music instead of too much CGI. Even though that was all CGI, but I mean too much action thrown in there. What did you think of
Right. And I think
What did you think of the last
about like the new one?
the new one? Yep.
Funny enough, much like you were just saying about Sandman, like as far as like the idea that like there's so much going on, there's like, I think with Far From Home, much like with the Homecoming, I think was the first one of the new Spider-Man movies. It's its best when it's really just doing like the coming of age, like kind of like teen comedy with, him, trying to like deal with school, like in the stuff with like his classmates. And I love that because it's cool showing Peter Parker that he's not like so socially awkward, like to a point, but he also has friends and they're, except for Flash, like I think they generally like him as well. And those parts of the movie were great. I'm gonna try my best not to spoil in case not everybody who's listening seen it, but I like those parts where he's just kind of like, talking to his friend Ned, having the one thing with the one kid in class who also liked MJ, and stuff like that. I wasn't as thrilled with like the superhero parts of it, as far as like the stuff with Mysterio. I mean, I get it why they did it, and it made sense as far as the story. Like, it was easy to follow. But to me, like with this new series, and even some of even like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, the best moments are just him, just as a regular kid, just trying to figure out like regular kid stuff.
That's funny you said that because this last one, the parts I enjoyed the most are him being a high school kid and joking around, which is
Exactly.
But I would rather. I mean, I enjoyed that. It was funny, but why can't we have Spider-Man in a suit? I don't understand too. There's no more secret identity anymore. Everyone's unmasked all the time. And I mean, I don't know why they're doing it, but I want to see him fighting crime in the suit. I want to see him in the city fighting crime. Like that's my problem with the animated movies. They're so good because they basically take the comic book and just animate it. But movies,
Right.
they're so worried about, I don't know, about getting people that are not into comic books, so they have to change the costume and they can't make it look too gimmicky. They have to take the mask off all the time. Just stop. I mean, if you're making a good movie, like to me, like The Watchmen, that was good. What'd you think of The Watchmen?
Watchmen, I'm gonna say this, and again, I'm gonna piss a lot of people off, but Watchmen to me is what happens when you're so faithful to the source material that it becomes boring.
You would have hacked out. What would you cut out about an hour out of that movie or what?
I would cut out about an hour. The ridiculous sex scene in the ship to Leonard Cohen, cut that right out. It was just not even like it makes me uncomfortable, but it was just sort of pointless. I don't know. I just feel like it made sense for Zack Snyder since he's very much like the superhero director, which is weird that they gave him Justice League, but I don't know. I feel like I get what you're saying as far as with Spider-Man and things like that, where they're trying to find ways to make it relatable, I think, to the average audience. But I think at this point, the average audience, I mean, we're what, 20 something movies into the Marvel Universe. And you have a series where there's a talking raccoon and a talking tree that says 3 words, and yet everybody loves them. I don't think you have to worry so much about making Spider-Man relatable. Like, people love Spider-Man. Like, when I went to go to the movies, like, I took Eileen's kids and we were, the daughter, she was dressed up. She had the mask and, well, she was going to wear the gloves, but we were worried about losing them. But she's just into Spider-Man. And I don't think you really have to sell them too hard on people. So I think in a lot of ways, just kind of keep it simple. And I also feel like since we've already had him in space fighting Thanos, it's going to be hard in his like second, third movie where he's just kind of like fighting purse snatchers. Where it's like, dude, you fought Thanos. Like, why were you?
Yeah, but
Let the local guys do this.
But well, that's why I don't like Thanos. I relate more to, I like the Daredevil, Luke Cage, Power Man, Spider-Man.
Okay, so you're definitely like that, the street level
Well,
characters.
he's
Okay, I'm with you, which I feel that.
I mean, you can have super powerful supervillains, but it's still on the street. Like when Spider-Man fights the Sinister Six, it's in Manhattan.
Right.
I don't, when they go off in too many out into outer space, then they kind of lose me. But I like, the dark, and some guy is, like you said, mugging someone in the alley and Spider-Man swoops in like Batman. I mean, that's why people like The Dark Knight. It had that whole thing. And another thing too is Spider-Man in the new movie, he's too weak, and I know he's 16-year-old kid, but I like him more. He seemed too short in stature too. I wanted him taller. I wanted him, he's more wisecracking too. The Spider-Man, to me, I think of more wisecracking like Deadpool. Have like a banter with the villains.
Right.
He was just,
which
like,
is something is really hard to do because isn't it like originally, like, as far as the banter, that was sort of his way because Spider-Man wasn't necessarily like, he's strong, but he's not the most like physically imposing. So his idea to sort of trip up villains was essentially just keep talking, which I understand that completely.
Yeah, but the Deadpool, I love that. But what's funny about Deadpool is it's almost, they should just make it a pure comedy because it's so over the top, so
Right.
absurd. And like that last villain, that kid, the fire kid, that was horrible. What was his name?
Man, what was it, Rusty?
I mean, that was just dumb. And
Which,
then the best
and the funny
part.
things, I know that was, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, which is funny because he's actually based off of like one of the more obscure, longer running X-Men characters who, like him, was kind of this hapless kid who's just always in like the worst situations, like, but like no team wanted him.
Yeah, I mean, I vaguely remember that. Was that 90s or when was that?
Yeah, it was like late 80s,
Yes,
early 90s,
yes.
but it was just kind of like, someone help this kid already. Good Lord.
Yeah, so, and obviously I think the best part people loved about Deadpool was Colossus and Juggernaut,
Oh, he was
because
great.
Colossus actually looked like Colossus. So I don't know.
My best friend had the best theory about that, and what made the first Deadpool especially so much fun is how he put it was we saw that movie through actually I think I did an episode about this. He had said it like you're seeing everything through the Deadpool's lenses, like through his mind and how he views everything. Which is, I think, why Colossus is funny because you read the X Men comics. You know, Colossus is far from like this goody two shoes, but the Deadpool, like the X Men, might as well just be like Captain America, where they're just like, oh, they just spout like these weird things about like, oh, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and eat your, take your vitamins and be kind to your parents. But like we all know that the X Men are not that team, but the Deadpool they just seem like goody two shoes, which I think is hilarious because everything you're seeing in this movie is just how Deadpool thinks of them.
Did you see the last X-Men movie?
No, I have not. Well, wait, Dark Phoenix? No, I have not seen that. Honestly, I didn't even get through all of Apocalypse. I think the last one I saw, like all of, was Days of Future Past, and I'm kind of just done with the X Men movies. I think I'm too into the source material to see the movies objectively. Like I'm that person who I just feel like you said, like they just kind of threw a bunch of stuff at it without really having any cohesion. Like say what you will about the Avengers movies, but they've set those up very well where everybody has like a character arc. Whereas the X Men movies, they just started to feel like, all right, well, this character we haven't used, put him in there. We're gonna put Nightcrawler in again, even though he's a kid and he has no real bearing on anything. Like there was just nothing felt grounded.
No, I think you're right on that. It kind of ran its course. Sometimes you got to just let things die and maybe reboot them later. But you're right. I mean, they just start running out of steam. Now they're gonna,
which is weird because First Class was like really good, but then it just kind of fell off again.
now they're gonna bring back the Fantastic Four again.
That's the word, and I'm really excited at how they're gonna tackle this.
What can they do though? Now, what is your feelings on changing Johnny Storm?
Changing Johnny Storm, that's fine because at first we thought, well, when Chris Evans got cast as Captain America, we're like, well, how is he gonna be that when he was Johnny Storm? And yet to me, I think he's a better Steve Rogers than he was a Human Torch.
I like the Human Torch.
Fantastic Four is tough.
I liked him as Human Torch, so he was cocky. I thought he did a good job.
Oh, he was great. I loved him. But yeah, he was also a really good Steve Rogers, so it was kind of tough, like to see him as both because at first it was hard to separate it, but once like the second Cap movie came out, you're like, wow, this guy is Steve Rogers.
But what was with the sideburns and all the makeup? That last one, I couldn't stop staring at him. He had so much goddamn pancake makeup on his face. What do you think that was?
I never even noticed that, but granted, was that maybe an IMAX thing or is it like a high def? I never even paid attention to it.
Dude, he had.
Now I'm not going to be able to unsee it.
Thanks. Yeah, pull up YouTube. He had so much damn makeup on. And I don't know if he's getting older and they wanted to keep him like that or it was something to contrast when he got old, when he used the face app at the end of the movie and got old. I don't know. But it's like, yeah, that's what I did on the I don't know if it was on Twitter or Facebook's, but I said, okay, I'm going to finally put my Facebook app up, and I put the picture of Steve Rogers as old.
By the way, your meme game has been on point. I should just say, if you're not following Amish Baby Machine on Twitter, yes, I'm going to do a shameless plug on your own show, but definitely check it out because you put up some really funny stuff.
Thank you, and it's all original. Everything I do is original.
Answer question about Fantastic Four, like the best way to do Fantastic Four is to not make it a superhero movie. Like they're super powered, but I think you can do more of like did you ever read any of Future Foundation?
No. Tell us.
Okay, so gosh, I can't remember how many years ago this was. Fantastic Four, Human Torch was supposedly killed, and then they kind of got out of just doing that. So then they started with essentially the Future Foundation, which was more of like a think tank or like a collective of scientists. And in his last wishes, Human Torch was like, all right, if anything happens to me, Spider-Man should totally replace me. So Spider-Man was on a team. And it was basically just a group of just explorers. And I think my favorite Fantastic Four stories are when the four of them, they're about like exploring different like worlds and dimensions. And if they happen to have to fight like some villain, cool. But they're not the same team that like, okay, if there's gonna be like, I don't know, a bus that's going out of control in Midtown, you're not gonna call it Fantastic Four for that. I feel like that's something again like a Spider-Man, maybe even like a Luke Cage, something like that. But I think treating Fantastic Four more of like a scientific-minded Avengers, maybe, or even like a Lost in Space.
Well,
I'll put it like
that's
that.
funny you said
Basically,
Lost in
with
Space.
superpowers.
I mean, Lost in Space, that's exactly what it is. You think about it, the mom and the dad,
hmm
exactly. You know,
That's how you do it. Lost in Space with
they have the,
superpowers.
the
Done.
old curmudgeon Unca Ben,
Who could be Doctor Doom?
Yeah. No, no, I meant,
They both have robots.
no, I was thinking more Thing. But yeah.
Oh,
And and Doctor Doom, I mean, if you think, what is Doctor Doom really? Darth Vader?
right.
You know what I mean?
He could totally be like Dr. Smith. Like he's always complaining. It's like he's as someone who hates the rest of the team, he's always hanging out with them. So
Now, what is your take on the changes they're doing? Like you said on the San Diego Comic-Con, they made some announcements.
oh, very excited, very very excited. Because much like you were saying before about like superheroes, I think what's cool now, because I mean they've announced things like Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu. Well, I mean that's not what they're calling the movie, but that was one of the books he was in days ago. Blade is coming back. Shoot. There's a couple other characters that they announced that they're not really superheroes in the way that like the Avengers were, where they got together and hey, we're gonna fight evil. A lot of those stories are a lot more like personal. Like we're getting more into like the supernatural magic kind of stuff. I mean, obviously vampires are gonna be a thing. And I think this is exactly what Marvel needs because Endgame wrapped up 10 years worth of storylines with that team of Avengers. And it would be redundant to do it again where you just have like another group of individual characters and have them team up. But I think, which is cool, I think would be awesome if they just told stories with these characters. Now, if there's any sort of like crossover between them, like if Shang-Chi and like Blade or New York like fighting like I don't know, ninjas and vampires, that'd be cool. But I feel like now they don't have to. So it's cool that they're just getting weird. And now that the movies are starting to reflect the comics, where now it's just like, look, we've already done our big team up movie. We have this raccoon in space. Now we have a vampire hunter. Let's just get weird. Let's just get silly. It's starting to remind me of some of the stuff I love from like maybe the 70s and 80s era Marvel, where they're just like, look, this is what it is. Just deal with it. Like this is the new normal.
Well, it's funny you said that because I was thinking about horror movies, like Man Wolf. You could go that direction too.
Oh yeah, or what's the other one like Werewolf by Night? Come on, how great would that
Yes. There was a
I doubt they're gonna do Son of Satan, but
yeah. That's nice. Bringing that one back. That's cool. How about Prince Namor, Submariner? What's going on with that? Have you heard anything?
God, every time I try to look that up, they keep making different rumors because I keep hearing that it's still a Universal character, but that they have the rights. I was thinking maybe since he and Black Panther are, Atlantis and Wakanda are always at war, maybe make him a Black Panther villain, but I don't know how that'd go because Namor could either be the best superhero or he could be like the biggest jackass or he could just be stealing Invisible Woman away from Reed Richards. I mean,
Now, what do you think?
he does a lot.
Now, what do you think of Natalie Portman as Thor?
I honestly didn't see it coming because I do remember after the Dark World, um, I know Natalie Portman was very vocal about not doing the Marvel movies anymore, and I wasn't sure what the basis of that was. If it was more of a contract thing, if it was about time, maybe better screen presence. So to see her spoilers in Endgame after they kind of like would talk about her in other movies was surprising because I honestly didn't think she'd come back. So not only is she coming back, but also going to be Thor, which Jane Foster has been Thor in the comics recently, and at first I was like a little confused by it, but once I read the story and what and how it works, it was cool. I don't know if they'll do it the same way because that story is a little on the darker side as far as like what the powers were doing for her. But I don't know. I'm just interested to see what happens because I mean, at this point, I'm just like, try it. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, there's still like 20, 25, damn near 30 movies that I can watch and enjoy. So
I just physically,
Like, at this point,
I don't know how she could pull it off. She doesn't seem like a powerful woman to me.
I think she could pull it off. Like, because, I mean, as long as whoever is worthy, I mean, Cap technically could do it. But granted, the only thing that was confusing to me is I always thought Thor was just his name. I didn't realize that was also the name of the character, but I also know that he had an alter ego in the comics. Was it Donald Blake? So I don't know. I'm just interested to see what happens. Like, if Natalie Portman can do it, like, if this is gonna be like, if she's the new Thor, because I mean, they kept Chris Hemsworth around, yes, but I don't know how long they're going to keep him around. So I'm feeling what they might do is essentially have like Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America, much like in the comics, where obviously Sam Wilson was Cap for a while. Um, Tony Stark was dead, so they had this lady Riri Williams, like she was like a teenage girl, like she became like Ironheart or something like that. But they can always have like other people take up the mantle, so it would be kind of cool to see if she becomes like officially the new Thor. I'm like, cool, because at this point, just try it, see what happens.
I was never really a Thor fan. I mean, I appreciate him, but to me, the godlike characters are a little boring to me. It's almost like some people can be bored with Superman because he's too powerful.
Right.
That's why Spider-Man and Daredevil and the lesser characters are cool because they have the human qualities. They can get beat up, wounded, and they're more relatable, if that makes sense,
Right.
compared to some super, like, I never liked the Galacticus, Thanos, those super powerful people. I kind of like the
I will recommend um Thor God of Thunder by Jason Aaron. That series, if you're not a big Thor fan, read that one. It'll make you a Thor fan. It's just that good.
Adrian, did you have fun tonight?
I had fun. And unfortunately, you got me talking about like superheroes, which I could be here forever. So I apologize
Powerful.
if I'm winded. You get me talking about comic books, it's like, you know what, might as well. But I had a lot of fun. And again, thank you so much. And also just thank you for your support, and just thank you for always just being just a really fun podcaster. Because I mean, your show's been going on for, if you don't mind me asking, how many years has it been so far?
2013. Sounds like a cool
Wow, okay,
science.
so
Yeah, we're about the same.
Yeah, so and that's kind of it. Your show started not too long as before or after mine. Same with like Dark Ages and Pretty Freaks, and there were a lot of other shows that have come. Some are unfortunately no longer around, which, but still, like the fact that we're both here after all this time and still connecting, I think that's it. It means a lot.
Now I want to get your plugs in. Tell the kids where they can find you.
Okay, so AdrianHasIssues.com is where you can find us on the interwebs, as the kids, I don't think they say that anymore, but whatever, that's the choice I made. But there you can listen to my show, Adrian Has Issues, which is, like I said, it's more of an interview-based show with other creators from comics and music. There are two other shows now. We have this nice little family where my girlfriend and my producer Eileen, she has a new show that just started recently called The Latin Nerd Experience, which is sort of her journey through creativity, but it's on a more personal level. And our episode one launched, like I said, a couple weeks ago. That's really cool. And now I have a new show with one of my best friends and regular on a show, Ashley Berkey, called Talking Like a Teen, which is basically us talking about like the music we grew up with, like in high school and our childhood, and even some of like our 20s. Between that, like some of the video games we play, but it's all kind of like filtered through this weird, like healthy obsession with the music duo Tegan and Sarah. So it's a lot of fun. So I mean, we could be reviewing like No Doubt one episode, and the other episode we'll be talking about Fast and Furious. But it's basically like a hangout show of just two friends getting together and just talking about the stuff we loved as kids. And so all those, like I said, you can find at AdrianHasIssues.com. I'm on Twitter at AdrianHasIssues. Let's see, Facebook, Facebook.com/AdrianHasIssues as well. Instagram is AdrianHasIssuesPod. But honestly, if you go to 18hasissues.com, you can find all the different shows, all the different Twitter handles. And yeah, that's that. And obviously, if you listen to us on like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, a few dozen more that I can't think of because there are so many of them. But honestly, just search 18 Has Issues, Latinerd Experience, LATINERD, and Talking Like a Teen on your favorite podcatcher, and you'll find us. And definitely listen to us. Let us know what you think. Leave a rating and a review if possible, and just thank you for your support. And also do support Dags, Amish Baby Machine. Like I said, he's been doing this as long as I have. Been doing it better, honestly, but
Powerful. Thank you.
definitely give him a shout because it really is a powerful podcast.
Thank you. And thank you, Flock of Amish, for enjoying this episode today. We had a great time with Adrian. Don't forget, I created powerful merch, AmishBabyMachine.com. Check out our merch. Also, all the social medias, follow us, Twitter at AmishBMachine, Amish Baby Machine, everywhere. And until next time, you've just enjoyed the Amish Baby Machine podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Amish Baby Machine Pop Culture Podcast. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and everywhere else fine podcasts are found. Please support our podcast through Patreon and shop our merch at AmishBabyMachine.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. This has been an Amish Baby Machine production.